Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Men's Room, a show about men, by men, of interest to everyone.
I hope so.
We would hope.
Yeah.
My name is Damien Licata. This is Forrest Seymour.
I thought you were Dale.
Not yet.
That's because he's going to be Dale in the Cuckoo's Nest production in Marlborough, New Hampshire in July.
That's right. Thanks for that little
You're right.
plug.
I'm very excited about this. Yeah.
It'll
It's
be
a real
fun.
men's. It's sort of like a men's. That's a men's.
Well, there's 13 men in the
story.
cast,
Yeah.
and only 3 women.
Yeah.
So,
so interesting.
yeah.
We'll have to deconstruct it on some later show.
Okay, that'd be fun. That'd be fun. Listen, I wanted to ask you about, because I've been sort of watching. This program is on, by the way, if anybody's wondering what this is, you're going to have to wait till the end of the show to find out. And then we'll tell you what it's all about. Yeah. But aside from that, I wanted to ask you about, we're on YouTube.
Yes.
And all of our programs, almost all of them, are archived there for folks to watch. And occasionally people will enter a comment, which they have the option to do on that website. And I've been noticing that there has been a conversation going about one of our programs.
I restrained myself for a while.
Yes.
Because we had on someone who does violence education, and after that show went on YouTube, somebody posted a comment that referred to her as a feminazi. And I saw that, and I sort of just let it sit there.
Thank you, Rush Limbaugh, by the way, for adding that to the vernacular.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I after a while, I just couldn't not respond. So I responded, and then this person responded back, and it's pretty. What's being put out there is this notion that men are being vilified, that they're that women are men are the target of violence just as women are, and that in particular there's a comment made about.
First of all, which show was this? What was the topic of the show? We were talking about.
It was Mona Anderson from Keene State College, who's the sexual violence interventionist.
Right. So working with students on campus around violence prevention, sexual assault, and issues like that.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So we're getting comments stating that we were taking, or the program was taking, a feminist stance,
but feminist
on the issue.
An extreme stance. The idea being that we're just saying that men are responsible for men are the perpetrators. They're the bad guys. That women are the victims. And this person didn't like
their point being that men are victims of violence as well.
Well, yeah, that's a piece of their point. Yeah, I mean, their point was that they took that, which is a point.
Right.
That what you said is a good point, but they took it's the internet. They're flaming. They're took it to an extreme.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think from what I was seeing, there's there's this this notion out there that often gets floated that there's some parity in terms of victimization of violence between men and women.
Yeah. Well, and there is some research that suggests that sort of like in terms of incidents, number of incidents, that within domestic violence situations, that there can be a similar sort of number of times that women hit men, men hit women. But that's not the picture. That doesn't.
Right.
No,
and the point too is that I think that when we're a program, by men, we're also for men. We are supporting men here.
Right.
And I don't think that probably what they were reacting to was, this didn't seem or feel particularly supportive of men, this stance that we were taking, or the viewpoint that we were taking.
Possibly.
And I think that that's kind of part of what they're asserting, like this is not what's a men's show doing,
But I think
bashing men,
but I think
violence.
I think that what happens, I think there's some hot button issues that when we talk about men's responsibility for violence, because men are the perpetrators of most violence in our culture, in our world, violence against men. I mean, men are most likely to be, attacked by other men. So, it's in our interest to be concerned about that.
Men are both the greater numbers of victims and perpetrators of violence, as it turns out.
But when we talk about that, people, I think it triggers some people who just, some men who are just so angry, and I sympathize with that they are feeling displaced, they are feeling neglected, who knows what their history is in terms of how they have been violated in their lives, and they react I mean, I don't know if I'm willing to say that they're necessarily looking and saying, oh, those guys aren't being supportive of men enough. I think that they're just hearing some hot button things and they're like, no, that's wrong, that's bad.
Right.
And I'm gonna, you know.
Well, we want to get to our guest, but
Yes.
I do want to just say that you know, we are supporting men in eliminating violence from all our lives.
Sure.
And that the toll of violence for both men and women is tremendous.
Yeah.
And anything that we can do to help men sort of, you know, help each other to take responsibility for at least our piece of it. I mean, that's really all we're saying.
Yeah.
We're not denying that there are other pieces, but we're saying, why not take responsibility for our piece?
And engage with us in this conversation. I mean, go to our website at mmrc.org and you can click through to the men's room page and from there to the YouTube page, and you can see what comments have been made, add your own comments. I mean, it's free.
That'd be great.
Yeah. It's
That'd
free
be
and
great.
free until
Yep.
Rupert Murdoch
Right.
gets them or whatever.
Or send us an email. We'd love to read your emails on the program as well. Okay.
So we have a
please,
great
let's hear
guest.
from
We have
our
a great,
guest.
really honored to have our guest with us today, who we've been working with getting him here. And his name is Ricky Davidson, and he's a outreach educator with Planned Parenthood in Northern New England, and based out of Brattleboro, Vermont. Ricky's been doing education about human sexuality in one way or another for 20 years, and at Planned Parenthood of New England, he works with men in particular, but also teens and parents, as well as professionals who serve youth, all around topics of human sexuality, reproductive health, and healthy relationships. And Ricky, it's an honor to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming across the river to join us.
It's great to be back over in Keene, so it's nice.
Yeah. So you work for Planned Parenthood, but I thought only women work for Planned Parenthood and only women got services from Planned Parenthood. What's the deal?
What a man want to do with Pam?
Well, that's a great question. I get that all the time. You know, Planned Parenthood is the predominant reproductive health care organization for women. I mean, we're the experts when it comes to women's reproductive health. We've been doing it for over 90 years. We know what we're doing. But we also serve men. And men are part of the equation when you're talking about reproductive health. It's not just a women's issue, it's a men's issue as well. So men do work at Planned Parenthood, not a lot of us, but a few. And men are welcomed at Planned Parenthood. We do education, but we also do medical services for men. So
What kind of medical services?
A lot of different things, primarily sexually transmitted infection testing and treatment. Also will help with cancer screenings and those kinds of things. Also, we do a lot of stuff, we try to do a lot of stuff with couples around if a female partner is on a form of birth control, let's get the guy educated about what's this birth control that she's on, how does it work, help, what's the percentages, how's that going to work. But primarily it's a lot of STI screening, cancer screenings, or education around those things.
So, and just to clarify, there is a Planned, for people who don't know, there is a Planned Parenthood clinic in Keene.
Yep.
Actually, just around the corner from where we're sitting right now.
Yeah, I actually parked there and walked here,
Yes.
so it was really nice.
Right. On corner of Winter Street and whatever that is there.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually the name of the street, to be honest with you. Right there, right behind the courthouse.
And there's hours most days of the week, I think.
Yeah, 6 days a week. The clinic here in Keene's open, so it's got a variety of hours. Has a walk-in clinic one afternoon a week on Friday afternoons.
And men can just walk in anytime?
Men can just walk in. If it's for the walk-in clinic in general, if it's a more elaborate procedure that needs to happen, they may say we can't do all of this today during the walk-in clinic. But for an STI screening, something like that, those are pretty easy to do during the walk-in clinic.
Yep. And if nothing else, I think there are free condoms there. Is that right?
There's definitely free condoms there, and we give out lots of free condoms every year. So there's a lot of that.
So what are the issues when you're doing reproductive health education with men? Sort of like what are the most meaty sorts of things you get into, or what are challenging things, or where do the men sort of go, well, wait a minute, Ricky,
The biggest thing is getting them to open up and being able to talk about the fact that they maybe are concerned, maybe they're not sure, maybe they're, it's really easy for men to deny that there's something wrong with them. They hear a noise in their car or a rattle in the car. It's easier for them to put their heads around that and get to that and say, okay, what's causing this noise? What's causing this problem? Whereas if they're having some sort of a problem with themselves, especially when it comes to reproductive health, because as a society, we don't talk about what happens with our genitals very often. We don't talk openly about those things. So if you have a problem,
You're talking about things like erectile dysfunction? And
erectile
things like
dysfunction, but also like if you have some sort of symptoms of an STI, pain when urination or a burning when you urinate, or maybe you've been a little bit promiscuous and you've had multiple partners and you weren't always precautious and used condoms, and so you have those kind of fears going on in the back of your head. Getting men to admit that maybe they have a fear, maybe that there's a concern, is a big thing. Once they've admitted that, then it's getting them to do the next step of, okay, you're concerned, that's great. Now let's do something with that concern. Get into the clinic, get tested, that kind of stuff. And I work with young men too all the time who hear horror stories about how sexually transmitted infections are tested for.
Really?
Yeah, because matter of fact, not that long ago, I was talking to some high school kids who said that, well, the test for they said STDs, but to test for STDs, they have to stick needles in your penis. It's like, no, they don't do that, So, there's a lot of myths, a lot of horror stories out there. For the most common sexually transmitted infections, what we're talking about to test for is you go and you pee in a cup. Real easy, and
maybe you need a little blood.
Maybe a little blood, but even that's not common now with things like for HIV testing, the OraSure. You rub a little swab on the inside of your gum, between your gum and your cheek, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's real easy.
Yeah, real easy. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I've been just reading a book by Terry Real where he talks about, and lots of people have talked about this, but it's just in my head. His book, where he talks about how disconnected men are and boys. How boys are taught to be really disconnect from a large part of their emotional selves, and this is sort of clicking with me around sort of the sort of physical part too. That boys, men are taught to disconnect from that discomfort. It's like just tough it out.
Right.
Don't worry about
walk
it.
it off.
Walk it off.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
No pain, no gain.
Yeah.
So it's easy to see what you're saying, that guys are just going to be like,
and men generally don't take very good care of their health as a rule. Group, I think, if you to generalize.
Sure.
But I think that it's it's pretty well documented that men, as a group, tend to not go to the doctor very very readily, not go for regular checkups and so forth, generally. So when you get into when you compound that with a sensitive area as well, I would think the obstacles.
They're big. I mean, and you're right. Men generally don't take care of themselves. I think it's average, and I'm not exactly sure of the statistic, but it's like women see a medical practitioner of some sort usually every year. Men, it's averaging 4 or 5 years between medical visits for anything. And then they're more likely, in a lot of cases, I think a lot of men are more likely to go to an eye doctor before they'd go to see a doctor.
I don't think that should count
around reproductive health care. but men will say that.
Yeah.
I've heard men have told me that. They're like, well, I went to the eye doctors 2 years ago.
Right.
So when you're like, when was the last time you went to the doctor? I went to the eye doctor 2 years ago. Okay, that's great. But does that really count?
Right. Yeah.
But for some men, that does count. They're like, I saw a doctor.
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
Yeah.
I walked past the doctor.
Right, he or she was an MD,
Right.
Granted.
Sure.
Yeah. But I think you're right, men don't take care of themselves. They don't, and they don't know how to take care of themselves. And there's been this culture that men don't have to take care of themselves.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
What about couples now? When a couple comes in there, if, for example, a woman is looking for some counseling or information about abortion or alternatives to that, and there's a supportive, one would hope, partner there with her. What sort of services are offered for couples?
Well, and a lot of times, I mean, in our clinics, our staff will check out with the female if the visit is primarily for the female, whether it's pregnancy testing or a birth control option, or even she is pregnant and making decisions about what to do with the pregnancy. They'll check in with the female first to say, do you want your male partner to be involved in this conversation? And if she says yes and he's willing, we love to see that happen. We really encourage that because, reproductive health, sex in general, a lot of it's done by yourself, but a big part of it's not done by yourself.
Yep.
So hopefully the people that you're having sex with, you're communicating with.
Right.
And you're communicating about what's healthy and what's not healthy also with the practitioners, with the medical staff as well.
Well, control is going to be far more effective if both partners are on
Exactly.
board with whatever the technology is.
Yeah, and how it works and whatever, and how it should work. You know, it's funny. You go to any one of the clinics, and it's getting better as far as men at least coming in and sitting in the waiting room when their female partner goes in for an annual exam or to to start on birth control or whatever. But the clinic in Brattleboro, where I'm based out of, a lot of times I'll go out there and there'll be guys sitting in the cars in the parking lot. And they're waiting in the parking lot, and they're hoping that nobody notices that they're waiting in the parking lot. And I'll go up and I'll say, you're allowed to come inside. Especially on the really cold days or the really hot days in the summer, I'll be like, we're air conditioned. You can come inside.
Yeah.
At least walk through the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because I think that for some men, healthcare, a lot of social service delivery agencies are, they're going to be staffed. They're going to be women's spaces.
Yep.
You walk in, and who's going to be there? Behind the counter, women.
Yeah. Don't feel particularly, male friendly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that we've really looked at that at Planned Parenthood too over the last few years about making it be Planned Parenthood nationwide, looking at making the health centers feel more either gender neutral or little less feminine, so men are feel more welcomed. And but also any men that I talk to that's been into one of our clinics, that's been through the door, that's taken that initial scary step. Right.
Yeah.
They say that they felt completely comfortable, that everyone treated them really well. There was a definite level of respect. They felt comfortable. They would go back again, and they would tell their friends to go.
Yeah, that's really important.
So that, yes, primarily you're going to see women. We don't have male practitioners. We don't have male healthcare associates, the people at the front desk, people that are going to take your blood pressure and get you set up in the room. But, and what I do over in Brattleboro too is I talk to guys all the time, like, if you want me to be there, I'm not a practitioner, I can't perform a medical procedure on you, but I'll be there. And I've been in the room when guys have gotten blood drawn or, I've helped answer questions and that kind of
so
stuff.
guys have said,
Yeah,
to you.
please.
They said,
Yeah, can you meet me there? And the clinic in Brattleboro, I let the staff know what my schedule is, so that if a guy calls and says, "Can Ricky be at my appointment?" they look at my schedule and say, "Yeah," and they schedule it accordingly.
Oh, that's great.
Planned Parenthood is and similar types of these are often the targets of more conservative elements of our society. Let's say folks who don't believe in birth control of any kind, perhaps, or are particularly opposed to abortion. And I'm wondering if, in the present political climate, for example, if there's been a first of all, any sort of backlash within our community, but also has it affected the funding stream for agencies like yours in terms of how much federal money might be available? Or
That's a huge question that you touched on. I think there's a couple things. I think luckily in New England, especially this area of New England, we are pretty comfortable in that we don't have a lot of protests and that kind of stuff. Over a dozen years ago, I lived in Virginia, and I used to volunteer being an escort outside of a Planned Parenthood clinic where they had protesters every day, dozens of them, who would say horrible things and show big poster-sized pictures of really horrible pictures. So we're just coming in to have an annual exam, to get tested for cervical cancer, that kind of stuff. So we're lucky in that we don't have a lot of that here. Funding stuff is definitely been affected. The pro-life groups have really lobbied hard with the political climates, I think. And sexuality education money is way down from where it was. Abstinence-only education money is huge. Dollars every year, and that's a really big deal because what we find out is statistically, it doesn't really do that much good.
abstinence-only
Abstinence-only
education.
It's not as right. Even kids that take an abstinence pledge, young teenagers that take an abstinence till marriage pledge, statistically they wait a few more years before being sexually active than their peers who didn't take the pledge. But they don't wait till marriage in high really huge they, it postpones their first sexual experience by a couple of years, and
Are they
then when they
necessarily
have
less
that, they don't
prepared?
have any education at all.
Right.
They're less prepared.
And they're also
So,
gonna,
yeah.
I would think they would be, particularly if it's a pledge that they've made with the knowledge of their family, they're gonna potentially want to withhold the fact that they become sexually active from their
Exactly.
family.
Right.
So they're not going to have that support or education source.
Exactly. So there's none of that. So though they wait, when they become sexually active, they have no idea of the consequences or minimal education around the consequences and how to prevent things like unwanted pregnancies or sexually transmitted infections.
But this is the direction the funding's been going, trending of late.
Right.
Yeah. So what has Planned Parenthood been doing politically to sort of counter this trend?
A lot of things. I mean, I'm not involved in the political arm directly. I'm an educator. I go around to schools and colleges and treatment centers and correctional institutions and talk to people about how to be healthier. But we really address the funding sources. We try to address the political situations in all of our areas. We have whole offices that's what they do. That they work with lobbyists and they work with, bills that are going before houses and Senate committees, nationwide, and try to really address those issues head on.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I get those emails.
Yep.
Yeah.
Me too.
So there's some stuff going on this month. I mean, it's sort of a big month for Planned Parenthood, I think.
Yeah. Here in the Keene area, it really has been a big month. I've internally been calling it the Keene Extravaganza. There was the march earlier this month, from Keene State up to the Common. Open houses.
That was International Women's Day.
It was International Women's Day. We had a free EC day earlier. There's been a lot of different things to try to just, in general, increase education awareness, not only of Planned Parenthood, but of the needs for reproductive health care, the needs for education around those things. There's the John Irving event this weekend.
Say a little bit about that.
John Irving's coming to, which is which feels like a big deal,
Yeah.
and it is. He's going to do some readings from his newest book, and I think he's actually going to do some reading from Cider House Rules.
Yeah.
And it's going to be at Keene State, so there's a lot of stuff there going on related to that. And I encourage you to either touch base with Keene State or with Planned Parenthood here in Keene, and they can help you connect it. You have to have tickets, and there's a reception, and you can be part of the reception or just go to the actual event.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of things going. There's some movies being shown and those kinds of things. So, yeah, good stuff going on.
So I'm curious, because I think we only have a couple minutes left. The time goes so fast. But I'm curious about, for you, as a guy, what has it been like sort of working in this field? I mean, how has that been for you? I mean, both at Planned Parenthood recently and sort of in the long run in this.
For myself personally, I feel like this is where I've meant to do. About 3 or 4 months, maybe 6 months after I started working at Parenthood, I went to a wedding of a college friend that I hadn't seen in a number of years, and other people who I haven't seen in even longer than that. And they were like, "So what are you doing now?" We were just all catching up, as everybody does, those kinds of things.
Yep.
And I said, "Oh, I'm working for Planned Parenthood as an educator." And they were like, "Well, that's what you did in college. Haven't you been doing that since you graduated?" I was like, "No, I haven't. I've been doing a lot of other things, and it took a while, but I'm there now." So for me, it feels like the most appropriate place for me to be.
Yeah.
It feels good. I enjoy what I do. And being one of the only men in the organization, and being the man who's out there, people say, like the opening question, men can go to Planned Parenthood, men work for Planned Parenthood.
I knew, of course, that men could do that.
Right, but I get that all the time, and I think that it's important for the people to know that men are welcomed, wanted, encouraged to take better care of themselves, but also to be aware of what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
There are also, I think, some special sort of challenges or things that come up when you're working in a setting where you're the only male too. I would think. I mean, I know that that's true for me, for example, and where I work, and has that felt comfortable for you? Have you ever felt like, God, I wish there was another guy in the room?
Not really. I felt comfortable with it from the get-go. The staff that I work with, primarily in Brattleboro at the health center, because I'm the only educator in the Brattleboro Health Center. So, in more ways, there was another educator there as opposed to another man there. Somebody else is doing education work specifically. But I felt very comfortable. I mean, I was as a man, I was lucky. I was raised by a mother with seven brothers and sisters, primarily sisters. I have 4 sisters. So
Yep.
I get the women piece and that kind of stuff. And the women that I work with are wonderful people.
Yeah.
But they were also concerned too. I mean, as an agency, it was I got checked in with by
Sure.
the by HR to be like, how are things going? You know, if there's a problem, can you call us? I'm like, everything's great, and sure, I'd call you, no problem. And not because I'm a man in a predominantly women's organization. If I was an employee and there was a problem, I'd be calling. You know?
Yeah.
Well, it's great. It's great. It's good work.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I'm thankful for you for being there.
Thank you.
And it's really important work that you're doing. And I think that the more men who can go into an agency like Planned Parenthood and feel like some ownership of it as well, that it's there for them too, certainly the better. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I encourage your viewers to come into the clinic, whether you need to be in the clinic or not. Just stop in and feel comfortable, so that if you ever do need to be in, it's not something completely foreign.
Right. Check it out. So are there phone numbers or anything you want to give out?
Here in Keene, the clinic number 352-6898. No, not on the side of the river very often, so forgive me. But 352-68998 will get you to the clinic here in Keene. Like I said, they're open 6 days a week, plenty of hours, so you can get in right in there. But also we have clinics up and down the Connecticut River Valley, you know, Brattleboro, Springfield, Vermont, Claremont, New Hampshire, West Lebanon, so there's plenty around.
Great.
And there is a you alluded to the email.
Yes.
They have a newsletter
Yeah, I get all sorts of stuff
that
from
comes
it,
out.
Yeah,
So,
ppnne.org is our Planned Parenthood of Northern New England's website.
Yep.
Encourage you to go on there and check it out. You can get on their mailing list.
All right, great. For coming on the men's room.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's great.
So good stuff.
Yeah.
So we only have a couple of minutes left, so we got to talk
Okay.
about a couple things quickly. First off, as usual, drop-in support group every Sunday night, 7 o'clock, 25 Roxbury Street, right next to Obashan's Hardware. It says Life Arts Center. They generously donate space for our group. 7 o'clock to 9. Any man is welcome.
Right.
Bring a friend.
Yep.
It's free.
Every
no
Sunday
commitment.
night.
Every Sunday.
No commitment. And very, very safe place to come in for a man to walk in the door.
That's right.
So
and no women.
yeah,
I mean, in case that's an issue.
Right. I mean, if that's important.
So what's with the shoe?
The shoe thing here. This is because there's an event coming up. It's going to be on. Let me get the dates right here, so I want to make sure. It's on April 14th, which is a Saturday. There's a registration at 9 a.m. and it's Walk in Her Shoes. It's the Men's March to Stop Rape, Sexual Assault, and Gender Violence. These flyers are around town and will probably be continuing to proliferate between now and the time of the event. We encourage you to go on the website. There's a
Well, you can go to our website
Yep.
at mmrconline.org and click to the registration information, which you will download a PDF of this brochure, and you can register in advance.
First 50 men.
First 50 men there get free T-shirts.
Yep.
And the idea is that men, women, children are all invited. Men can come as they are. However, if you wear women's shoes, that you get to walk in front, because men and women's shoes. That's the whole idea.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And the T-shirts, by the way, will be available to others
for
for
sale,
purchase if you aren't one of those lucky first 50.
That's right.
And you're encouraged to wear that T-shirt in March.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be terrific.
So another great show. Who do we have on next week? I've forgotten.
You
I always
had to
forget.
ask.
I
You had
know.
to
I
ask.
was going to look it up, and I forgot to look it up.
Yep. I'm not sure myself.
It's a surprise.
But it'll be
surprise guest.
another great show, no
It will be.
question.
I know. It's great.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us in the men's room. It's been great having you with us. Check us out on the web, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Thank you, Forrest.
Hey,
Yeah,
thank you,
good show.
Dale. I mean, Damien.